Hi guys, it's Jen here again. I hope you guys are doing well. So in this particular video, I wanted to make something that wasn't related to the MBTI. So this one is more of an advice / counseling kind of video that I wanted to make based on a Tumblr post that I created a few years ago. I received a comment asking me if I ever read or listened to any of Jordan Peterson's work, and the answer to that is that yes, I have, and actually I've been quite influenced and inspired by him lately. I read his book 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote for Chaos, and it kind of reminded me of what I wrote a few years ago, and it being 10 steps to becoming a happier and better version of yourself. Okay, the first step to becoming a happy and better version of yourself is to simply accept that you are human. We're imperfect, and we always will be. There are going to be things in life that happen to us that constantly remind us that we're human, but it's okay. And the first step is just a reminder to ourselves to not, beat yourself up for things that go wrong. Don't beat yourself up for mistakes that you make, because we're just blood and bone. We're full of imperfections. We're full of limitations. Sometimes you have to realize that there are things in your life that you really can't change. And when you realize that you can't change those things, don't dwell on them. Don't overthink. Don't let those things drag you down. Identify what these things are. This could be perhaps a toxic family member, what else? A serious health condition, that may be working against you in life. Maybe you're suffering from the aftermath of some pretty bad, poor life choices. And you can identify those things, that there are things that you can't change. And instead of dwelling on them, instead of beating yourself up over them, just accept what they are and move on from them. You can't control what's already happened in your life, but you can control where you want to move on from there. And you'd be surprised at how much autonomy and liberty you have in doing so, and how much more free your mind will become after you accept what you can't change. Now, the next step is a very important one. It's to be grateful for what you have. You can't be a better version of yourself if you keep thinking about the things you don't have, right? I know as humans, those are the things that are the most obvious to us. We fall asleep at night, we wake up in the morning thinking about what we don't have. We don't have someone, who loves us, maybe unconditionally. We don't have that ideal career that we've always wanted. We don't have enough money, we don't have enough, there's too much of what we don't have. But think about what we do have. What do you have? What do you have? Most likely you have someone who cares about you. You most likely have shelter and food and water. If you're watching this video, you're most likely living in a first world country anyway. So you really have to think about the positive aspects of your life. And you need to hold on to those things, because life can really disappoint you at times. It can inflict a lot of suffering into your life, and that's going to be a fact. That's definitely going to happen to you. So what's the harm in being a positive person, in being optimistic, in realizing and being grateful for what you have? Because if we harbor large amounts of negativity rather than positivity, it will just become worse versions of ourselves. We'll just be resentful and hate the world around us, and what's the point in that? So always remember to be grateful for what you have, because if you're grateful, you will feel better, you'll feel happier about yourself, you'll feel positive, and you'll similarly emit that positive energy towards people around you and your environment. So, you know, you're killing two birds with one stone. You're being good to yourself and you're being good to others. So remember to count your blessings and not your problems. Realizing things that you have is very important, especially things like relationships that are important to your life, your important family members that support you, friends, significant others. Sometimes we get so caught up with the material realm and our, you know, ambitions that kind of just take us away from the present and distract us from what's important in life. One of my favorite quotes of all time is 3 things determine a happy life: someone to love, something to do, and something to hope for. So for me, I always, if I'm feeling unhappy, if I'm feeling, you know, a bit depressed or miserable in my life, you know, I try to look at that list and I'm like, do I have someone to love? Do I have something to do? And do I have something to look for? And if I'm able to tick all those boxes, then I have to, you know, reflect on myself and reevaluate what I'm making the center of my life. You know, maybe I'm putting too much attention on things like money or career or things that don't truly make me happy, yeah? And if I realize that, hey, I do have someone to love, I do have something meaningful to do, and I do have something to look forward to, then I should be happy, you know? Maybe I need to switch or flip my perspective in order to see those things. And that's very important, especially when we find ourselves thinking to oblivion, you know, getting too caught up in one aspect of our lives that we forget that we take other things for granted, especially things that are truly important in this life. It's very easy to hate on ourselves as humans, and it's equally or maybe even easier to hate on others because we don't love ourselves, because we project our own flaws into other people. So what I mean by learning to love yourself because of your strengths and weaknesses is know where to get a sense of self-worth or self-esteem from. A lot of us get into codependent relationships, or we get involved with the wrong types of people or the wrong types of communities and projects in life because we think that we feel better about ourselves for being involved in those things, when in reality maybe they're just stroking our egos, maybe they're just validating, you know, an ideal image that we want for ourselves. So don't base your self-worth or self-esteem off a shaky foundation. Don't base your self-esteem and self-worth off a person in your life. They're not a reliable reflection of who you truly are. Definitely don't rely on toxic people. Don't rely on words of affirmation. Don't rely on what people think about you. Don't rely on what people say about you. A reliable thing on which you should build your self-esteem and self-worth is your knowledge of yourself, your own self-awareness. What do you know about yourself? Who are you? Ask yourself, who are you? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And when you're able to identify your strengths, you realize that, oh, this is actually what's good about me. And maybe then you can validate yourself by asking people around you, hey, do you actually think that I'm good at writing? Do you think I'm a good public speaker? Do you think I'm a good friend? Do you think I'm a compassionate individual? Do you think I'm an intellectual? And if a lot of people around you agree with that, and I'm not saying they agree with you because they want you to feel good or they're just saying that for the sake of it, but you know, having it come from people that you trust and who care about you would mean a lot. So you need to learn to love yourself because of those strengths, because those things give your life meaning and give your life value. And you can also identify your weaknesses, and by your weaknesses we have different types of weaknesses. We have our fundamental cardinal weaknesses that are usually rooted in our personalities that we can't change much throughout life. And that's okay, because nobody's perfect, right? And everyone has to tolerate each other on something. So for example, for me, when I was younger, I used to have a really short temper, and that would kind of affect those around me and my family members. But over time, I've learned to, I've become aware of that, and I've realized that, I can't let this negative trait or weakness of mine bring any more negativity into my life. But there are also weaknesses that you can improve on. Maybe you realize you're not a very sensitive person. Maybe you tend to rub people the wrong way. And you don't want to be that kind of person, because kindness and friendliness and having compassion and empathy should be a virtue that we should all work towards. And I'm not saying that being, less sensitive by nature makes you inferior to people who are better than you. It just means that it's something that you can work on. And similarly, a strength of yours could be a weakness of someone else. And that's why we need to work together to improve each other. Know your strengths and use that as a reliable source of self-esteem and self-worth. Understand your weaknesses so that you can better manage yourself and your relationships in life. And also to improve yourself. You know what your strengths are, you know what your weaknesses are. So now tell me about what your hobbies are. What are your interests? What is something that you live and breathe? People who are more artistic and creative, or who are higher in openness, I suppose, tend to be, more aware of what things they're passionate about. Some people will have a more difficult time figuring out what their life calling is. But you'll definitely find something, you'll find something that you really enjoy doing, and that you'll probably always enjoy doing. Why is it important to do only what you're passionate about? It's because what else are you going to do in this life? Why should you not pursue your passion? Why should you not pursue your interests and your hobbies? Really think about that. If you were to die tomorrow, and honestly, you don't know when you will, right? Life is full of unpredictability. So understand your passions and make a conscious effort to pursue them, because you only live life once, and you don't want to leave with regrets. You don't want to have dedicated 10-15 years of your life striving for something that someone else told you to do, right? Oftentimes it's our parents, our teachers, and our peers that tell us that, oh no, you shouldn't pursue your dreams, or you shouldn't be this because it's not practical, or it wouldn't guarantee you financial stability or material success. And I'm using these as examples, but this could also be related to relationships, like people telling you that, oh, you should date this person, you shouldn't be with this kind of person. And don't let other people get to you. Don't let external opinions dictate how you should live your life and what you should pursue in life. You really need to start being introspective. And if you have trouble with being introspective, do some research online, talk to different kinds of people, try to understand yourself a bit better, so that you know what you're passionate about and you understand what your interests and hobbies are. And push yourself in that direction, okay? So that you can fulfill your full potential, and that you will leave this life without feeling like you haven't done all that you could. Don't compare yourself to someone else just because you think they may be better than you. There's always going to be someone who's better than you, and there's always going to be someone who's inferior to you. And that's just a fact of life. We're never going to be the best in our field, because even if we are the best in our field now, there's always going to be someone in the future that's going to be better than us. So comparing ourselves to other people at one point in time or throughout time is an unreliable way to judge yourself. And besides, all of us are unique individuals as well. So each of us have something unique and different to contribute to the world and those around us. So even if someone appears to be better than you, perhaps you're an engineer or a mathematician and someone is more advanced, in skill or knowledge than you are, so what? You have something else. You probably have other strengths that they don't have. So you're a unique individual, and you should believe that your uniqueness will transfer to something that has value. So quit comparing. Don't compare yourself to others. Instead, aim to maximize your full potential. It has a lot to do with opening your heart up. So in terms of relationships, letting yourself be vulnerable is about letting yourself connect with others through suffering, through opening your heart out. All of us have our problems and our issues. And I find that it is when we share our problems with each other, is when we share our mutual suffering with each other, that we truly connect on that deep level of what it means to be human. And together we can not only support and encourage each other, we also validate each other. We also validate each other's existence. And one of the most meaningful things in life is to develop these meaningful connections with people, even if they're temporary. They don't have to last, they don't have to last for a long time. Sometimes it may just be, an hour or a few days, a few months, but those are the connections, those are the relationships that make our lives meaningful. It's those moments when we truly connect with someone that we feel like we're actually not so alone in this world. So let yourself be vulnerable in your relationships. Be honest with other people, be honest with your fears. Don't fear judgment. Don't fear that someone's going to hurt you, because I know we all have our guards up sometimes. We're afraid of being hurt, we're afraid of being judged. But at the end of the day, if we don't take those risks, we're always going to have a closed up heart. We're always going to have a closed heart chakra, or we're always going to have our walls up, and we're never going to truly build a connection with someone. So let yourself be vulnerable in relationships, and also let yourself be vulnerable in your choices in life as well. Sometimes we're afraid of taking risks because we're so drawn to comfort. And one of the risks, actually, ironically, of being too comfortable is that you're not going to learn anything new in the long term. You're going to be stuck in stagnation. And you'll find that your life doesn't really improve, or you start feeling like there's too much routine, there's not enough meaning in your life. So take risks in terms of your choices as well. Choices like, what should I do with my life? How should I make a living? Should I move somewhere else? Should I make a new group of friends? Things like that. A lot of us are very tempted to just follow a path that's been paved out for us already, whether it's a path that's been paved out for us by society or those around us. It's just easy, it's just easy being a sheep than to be a lone wolf or someone who paves their own path or writes their own destiny. Don't be tempted to live an expedient life. Don't just say that this is what's been given to me on a plate and I'm just going to take it. Like, we all have a choice. We all have a choice to make great differences in our life that would greatly improve it. If only we understood what we wanted and not let our environment fully dictate how we live our lives. Now, why are long-term goals important? Long-term goals are important because if we don't have them, we may be very tempted to not take responsibility for our lives. We may be very tempted to live expedient lives. We may be very tempted to numb ourselves of pain. And obviously having a set of long-term goals will ensure that you always have something to work on. You know, it's a constant reminder that I'm on this earth for a limited amount of time and this is what I want achieved. Have a set of long-term goals. You know, make sure that you do all that you can in this life to achieve those things, because what's going to happen to you after death, you don't know. None of us know. But we want to make the most out of our lives, and don't waste your time doing something expedient. Don't waste your time just messing around and not being sure of what you want and who you are.